Good. Good morning. Is audio working? Can people at home hear me? Perfect. Welcome in, guys. We're on session 18. This is Negotiate Offers. We are going to actually wrap up session 19 and 20 on Monday and Wednesday. Friday, I have to see my parole officer. Just kidding. I'm in an all-day meeting. So we're going to wrap up next Monday and Wednesday with session 19 and 20. Questions, comments, concerns, any questions about anything thus far? I'd love to hear a few success stories about people that are applying what we're learning. Has anybody added people to their database? I got people nodding. How many people have you added to your database? What's the number we want to get to in Command or whatever database you're using? What's the golden number? 201, Declan says. That would be correct. So the misconception is on that chart, which we can blame this on International and everybody else, that it's 201 and then you stop there. If you look at the bar graph, Zoe made a great point. It's between 201 and 1,000. Gets you to that 119 in GCI, right? So 201 is a great place to start. Everyone who joins real estate probably has 201 in their phone. So there's really no excuse to not get there sooner than later. Yes? No, nope.
Question on that.
I'm like, he's really young, so I must be having this stroke. Colin just walked in like we weren't standing here, right?
Yeah.
It was like, I was like,
no, you're just
I'm like, man, am I having an out-of-body experience right now? Anyway.
Yeah.
Question, go ahead.
So I was doing my, fully formulated contacts with addresses and so forth.
Yes,
the ones I had on the Christmas card list,
Yep.
ultimately.
Yep.
And then I did my phone dump, and now I'm up, pushing 600 in there. Strategy to, I went through. Hey, Zoe, how are you? I went through and before the initial phone dump, negated all the, oddballs, that didn't exist. So best strategy is just to start going through, and because they're mostly just phone numbers. Just knocking off a letter, calling day by day, and updating and getting as much as I can from that point.
Yeah.
Because it feels nice to see that number in there, but I know it's not a reality of, official contacts. So, I mean, they're official, but, I don't have them fully formulated. So just pick a letter.
Yeah, well, I want you to be excited about just having, first of all, getting people in there is important. Not having the perfect four, not having Miles Underwood, 603 123 Main Street, miles@leavemealone.com. That's okay, because we're never going to have all of that stuff. Oh, I'm getting the remix. Thanks, Mom. So the problem is, here's my biggest concern. You will have people that get to 202. Then they get to 202 and they're perfecting the 202. And then they get to 305 and it's perfect. What have we not done yet? We haven't hit play yet. Yeah. So you have this perfectly curated list of people with all their information that still don't know you're alive. And that's brain damage. So, and don't get me wrong, there's the art of shooting from the hip, the Nate Dickey-esque, just send the stuff out. And I would say this with him in the room. I want there to be, we talk about it all the time, the message and the method. How are we getting to them? What are we saying to them? And making sure to some extent, it's 1987. We have pretty good tech. We want to curate the message appropriately. I shouldn't be sending out one in April that says, hey, Mr. Lindsay, you want to make sure you clean your screens before you open those windows and let the pollen blow in. He's an investor. He doesn't care about the screens, right? He has people that do that at his house. He's not doing that. So your investor, he or she shouldn't be getting something, about it's a great time to weed your garden. That's tone deaf to them, and you'll lose them. Much like if we have somebody who follows our business page on Facebook, as soon as you start to send through stuff that isn't of value, they can like your page and they can unfollow it, right? So we got to be, don't overthink what you're going to start to communicate to people. At the very least, start to send something out to everybody. that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
fact that you're adding people is important. I mean, when we talk about the database, what are we supposed to be doing? We're supposed to open it. And if you haven't been there yet, I will track you down and kick you in the face. Agent.kw.com, open command. Build it, which means your first big push of people into it. Feed it every day, communicate with it, and then what do we do? Then we service the leads that come from it. So I appreciate you being honest about it's not perfect or whatever. If you have a phone number connected to somebody, you call them and get their email, right? And the way I would do that, because people are just like, well, what do you tell them? You need their email so you can start spamming them? No. No, hey, Miles, what's up? It's Timmy. We just got a brand new tool at my company. And there's a piece of information of yours that I don't have, that I would love to have for when in the future I earn the right to serve you. Like I'm telling you right now, I'm going to take miles@leavemealone.com. You're not going to get a shitty email from me in the next 10 minutes. When I get the right to serve you as a client, I'll use that tool. That's all.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's dumbfounding to me. Every one of our friends right now in the next 2 hours is going to dump all of their private information into something to get past a paywall or an information wall. But yet me calling and saying, hey, dude, got a brand new tool at KW. I just want to make sure. I've got Janina at MetroCast. Horrible company, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, and how do you spell my wife's first name? Carefully, right? Is it still Janina at MetroCast.net? Is it still FenwayFan at MetroCast.net? Which it's not, because my email doesn't work anymore. If anybody works at MetroCast or BreezeLine or whatever they call it now, yeah, terrible company.
I'm seeing some Hotmails in there. And yeah, I don't-
Oh,
those.
before we get started, yes, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, this comes from the desk of Alice Kubaki. And she and I will die on this hill. If you get an email that is AOL.com, don't even call them. Go to their house. Those people are dead serious.
Yeah.
Those people they're savers.
Yeah.
Right? If you find an AOL, and they come in on Boomtown all the time.
Yeah.
If you get, and I'll pick on my dad. If you get Richard E. Lindsay, who's since passed, because I joke about this all the time, you know, curmudgeon-y old man, Vietnam vet, Richard E. Lindsay at AOL.com, but he saved every penny he ever made, right? And they have discretionary income to buy houses. If you ever get an AOL.com, I guarantee those people are dead serious.
My 87-year-old grandfather right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same guy that still has a Model T in the garage,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I got my first ever email. It's made out of wood.
Yeah.
Why do I need a new Gmail? Well, I don't need a newfangled Gmail. I got an AOL.com. It's like, all right, Dad, I get it. Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm still pushing a Yahoo from 25 years. So I'm good to go.
Oh, boy. So while we're on email, another sidebar, please understand, we are not protected with wire fraud issues. And of course, our brokers can speak to this better than I can. But I know we see a lot of people that are using their Gmails and their Yahoos. And they never start to actually use their Miles Underwood at KW.com. Your protection with our company on certain offenses that can happen electronically aren't protected on your Gmail, or I should say on your Yahoo. Please use your KW so we as a company can help you with certain issues.
Yeah, I use the Yahoo for the dump.
Yeah, the Yahoo, yes, yeah. I used to use my FenwayFan at MetroCast.net, but now I can't get into it.
Yeah.
And nobody there can seem to help me. Yeah, they're very confused. They take my money every month for their crappy internet, but I can't use my email. So we're in the last one here, negotiate offers. Monday we'll get to the close. Wednesday we'll do plan your future. And Friday, most of you will be probably leaving at 12 to go drinking, which I appreciate. That's next week, of course. Next Monday and Wednesday, we wrap up. No class this Friday. There's your workbook. You just saw Zoe sneak in and update us to the remix. So we're going to be using the slide deck that I should be using. So if you've got 2 seconds, you want to scan that. The workbook is there for Ignite. Ignite also has a ton of scripts in there too. If you ever come to Fight Club, we don't use the Ignite script books. No offense. We always use the Jeff Glover script books because they're just super clean and easier to navigate. So if Gary's listening, fix the script book in Ignite. I don't love it. We're going to talk about what is negotiation. We're going to talk about the 3 Ps of negotiation. Negotiation tips. Then we'll do some recaps and get you on your way. What is negotiation? I find this fascinating. We have a veteran agent who constantly arm wrestles with me about using the word scripts. Now, you'll notice I still say it, but nationally, our company has gotten away from the word script. You hear us saying conversation blueprints. The reason for that is you also see us talking about in every class, we'll do it at some point today, the TCPA, Telephone Consumer Protection Act. When that big lawsuit a couple of years ago hit, and a whole bunch of brokerages got yelled at about the do not call list, we were involved. We're not, obviously not immune to it. We were involved. And the big thing that came out of that was that companies and us, they said, Gary Keller is scripting his agents around the do not call list. So we got away from scripting because we decided it was a dirty word because somebody in court made it a dirty word. All that aside, people are just like, yeah, well, when you tell the agents it's going to be a class about scripts, nobody likes that word, so they're not going to come. So why don't you call it negotiations? All right. I mean, I hear you, but those are two different things. Negotiating is hunting, and scripts are ammunition, right? So negotiating is an act, script is a tool. So negotiating is the conversations we're having. We negotiate everything, right? If you're married or you're in a relationship, you probably will negotiate sometime between 6:30 and 7:30 tonight about whether you're gonna have tacos or mac and cheese or just get in a fight and go eat cold cereal. I don't know. Everything's a negotiation. Anytime we are making sure that we get a win-win out of a concern and we're making concessions, that's a negotiation. If you're married, you're negotiating for the rest of your life. They always say, you don't just get married and stay married, you get married and keep dating. If you want to stay married, you keep dating. Lee Steinberg, phenomenal agent, by the way. We actually went to an event in New York a handful of years ago called Recharge. And Nathan and I they always do a surprise event at this event. We were supposed to be going to Yankee Stadium, which I could take or leave, quite honestly. And we didn't go to Yankee Stadium because they were having a security issue or something. So we ended up going to a part of upstate New York where Lee Steinberg has his office and saw a lot of really cool stuff. And one of the people that he is actually the agent for, or was the great Mariano Rivera. So we got to his office, and who do we have as a special guest speaker? Mariano Rivera, who was probably also going to speak at Yankee Stadium, but it was amazing. We're walking in and Nate's like, who's that? I'm like, what do you mean, who's that? The greatest closer of all time. He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, yeah, no, he's talking about. Anyway, negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It's an everyday part of life, like we just spoke, right? We're always negotiating. And that speaks right to this. It's a win-win or no deal. I said to you guys, I want it to be a 4 wins. I want a win for each broker and a win for each client, ultimately. It's all about concessions. It's all about making sure that everybody walks away feeling they got to win. Integrity, do the right thing. And right now, in this market, I was talking to Adam Dow yesterday at noontime during Mega Agent May. A market like this, any challenging market, is going to uncover who we really are, right? During COVID, when we had a frenetic market, people were selling houses, everyone was making an inordinate amount of money. Everybody gets to be a good person. What do you want for lunch? Whatever you want for lunch, right? Now people are like, I think I'm gonna have ramen. I think I'm just gonna eat a napkin and drink some water, right? You know, so does your audio match your video? If you're saying you're a good person, are you a good person? Are we integral in doing the right thing? The customers always come first. Notice that doesn't say the customers are always right, because they're not. If I get to print my shirts, I'd be like, the customers are always stupid. They are. When they're smart enough to sign the paperwork and become your client, then they're a little bit smarter. The customers aren't always right. They do come first, though. We have to do a needs analysis with them. We have to find out what's important to them, right? We talk about the 6 connecting questions: what, where, why, when, how, and who. Communication, seek first to understand. That's why we're always asking questions. We have to stay out of judgment and stay in curiosity. Creativity, ideas before results. Now, you could argue the Red Book has been around for a long time. It's not perfect. Have we had hundreds of thousands of agents utilize it for their systems and models? Has it helped people build great businesses? Sure. Will there be new ideas? Absolutely. But we talk about systems and models, then creativity. We're going to talk in business planning clinic at the end of June when we do the halftime business planning clinic, Thursday, June 29th in this room. Colin will probably walk in and think it's contracts. It's fine. We'll get through that. That was really funny. I thought I was having a stroke. I'm like, what's happening right now? We're going to talk about the fact that everybody wants to go right to creative. People get into real estate. They're just like, you know what? I'm gonna focus on my logo. I'm gonna make sure my business cards are good. I want that perfect shade of teal on the back of my website. Nobody cares. We have to build systems and models. We have to have a business. Don't worry about what color the ride is at Disney if nobody's in the park, right? We have to get some customers in the park. We can build along the way. We can get creative along the way, but we have to install systems and models and start to build our standard. Teamwork, together, everyone achieves more. And we've talked about this a lot in my conversations this month with the mega agents and people like amazed at our company that we will have, if anyone was here, for Matt Erdman, our regional operating principal, phenomenal talent, comes and stands in the front of the room, has this huge conversation, unloads a whole bunch of things. And how many of those of you applied? If you are a member of our ALC yesterday or anybody in the region that attended Jeff Glover yesterday in Waltham, phenomenal opportunity. Jeff Glover, if you've never been, those are the scripts that we hand out during Fight Club. GloverU.com is his website. A phenomenal agent out of Detroit, Michigan. Unfortunately a Tigers fan, but we'll get through that. And in the grand scheme of things, he spent yesterday in Waltham, you know, giving all of his trade secrets. He always does. Because what do we know? You put 100 people in the room, they might sit and take copious notes. How many people will walk away from that experience and apply those things, right? So we're always going to offer best practices. And you'll hear Zoe and I say that at the top of many of our statements. We're not here to tell you how to run your business. We're here to offer best practices. Because we've watched people fail and succeed. And we've only been here for a little bit, but what do I have? The institutional knowledge of the entire company. We have the Red Book. The Red Book is literally, don't do that, stupid. They could change the title to don't do that, stupid. Do this. That's what the Red Book is. So that's why teamwork is so important. That's why we're in an environment where you can raise your hand and anybody in the company would be willing to help. Because ultimately you still have to go do the damn thing, right? If we dropped the Patriots, I struggle using the Patriots as an example because we're so terrible right now. But think back to a wonderful time when we were busy on duck boats every February. The Patriots could have dropped their playbook in downtown Pittsburgh. The Steelers could have picked it up and they'd start leafing through like, oh my God, all the secrets are in here. About 15 pages in, they're going to be like, oh, there's a lot of work in here. Let's just go get lunch. And then don't forget too, that like the je ne sais quoi of the entire experience of your business is you. You're the intangible. So the driver in your business, when we ask, you know, what's the differentiation between you and every other agent on the planet? And I always tell you guys to pick up your phone. And you could argue, well, yeah, but I've got 1,000 people on my phone, and so does Declan, so does Sindel, so does Talena. What's the differentiator? Your relationship with those people. Because everybody's got Nate's number. If you don't, it's 603-817-1088. And it's not about who calls him first or next. It's who stays in touch and makes him feel heard and cared for. So when he becomes transactional, you're the no-brainer, right? Trust starts with honesty. And you're gonna, when you ask that question, when you're talking to your client, Mr. Lindsay, what's important to you and your next agent? You're gonna hear a lot of people say, well, we'd love to know that, you know, you're a square dealer. You're gonna be honest with us. You're gonna be honest in your dealings. Some people might say it differently than that, but that's really important, right? Trust starts with honesty. I talked about the fact that McConaughey talks in his book, Matthew McConaughey says, you don't earn my trust, you start with it. If you choose to erode it over time, that's on you, right? So how do you feel about that with other people in your relationships? Equities, opportunities for all. Like if you feel, and I was just talking to Darlene Caldwell Ellis this morning on the Quick Start, if you ever feel like you are professionally or financially inhibited in this environment, then we're doing something wrong. Nate's little feet hit the ground in the morning. His entire ethos is, how do I create an environment where no one would ever want to or need to leave? And if you feel like Nate's in, I'm trying to say this without laughing. If you can come to my office and be like, Gary's in my way. Gary's slowing me down. Nate's slowing me down. You know, I was looking at the hallway. I think the paint on the walls is slowing me down. If you're going to be in victimhood and blame it on everybody else, but if you can honestly come to us and say, this is holding me back, or I need this resource to move forward, I would argue we probably have it. If we don't, we're probably building it. And since we started building Command, like, we're probably dumb enough to build anything at this point, because we fancy ourselves a tech company. It's only taken us 38 years to build Command, but that's all right. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Everybody gets an AOL, right? AOL.com, baby. And then success results through people. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, bring other people with you. And it's not about building a massive team. You're going to see this when we get to the org chart, when we talk about the 4th model in the Red Book on June 29th in this room, shameless plug, Business Planning Clinic. When we talk about the org chart, that is a menu, not a map. You don't have to go to 7th level, but you can build out your operational side with a virtual assistant, a virtual transaction coordinator. Because how many people in this room love typing and can't wait to type up their next contract? I'm raising my hand as a freaking joke. I was like, we were actually in a review the other day for a staff member. And it's me and Jeff. And Jeff's watching me type. And Jeff, like, I think you guys probably know this. Jeff is super dorkalicious. Jeff is very high D, high C. I'm IS. I want to talk and hug. Jeff wants data yesterday, right? So he and I room when we go to like Mega and stuff. Can you imagine? It's like, yeah, it's like The Odd Couple. He's laying in bed like, shut up. And I'm like, did you see the thing about the stuff? So anyway, I'm typing like an idiot because it takes me about 30 minutes to complete a sentence. And Jeff, we're in the same document. And I finally realized Jeff's in there typing. He's like, I got it, Tim. Just you talk, I'll type. He's Typosaurus Rex, I'm Talkosaurus Rex. But find your people. And there's a misconception too, when we talk about team building, we'll talk about this in Business Planning Clinic. Ringo could have started the Beatles. He didn't because he was busy dressing poorly and smoking weed, right? But everybody's like, no, you got to be John Lennon to start the Beatles. Like a really good director of operations. And this isn't the way it happened, but Susanna could have walked up to Nathan years ago and been like, you're really bad at typing. You want to join my team, right? I think we always think, oh, it's got to be Jeff Glover that starts the team. And I think her last name's Kerrigan. Taylor Kerrigan is a rock star. He can blame all of his greatness on Taylor, right? Nate can blame the fact that he actually has a database now on Susanna Shaw, right? There's 2 options after an offer is presented. Offer, accepted, close. You're going to have some of those unicorns in your life. It's going to be great. And I like, look at option 1 and think of that in terms of a kitchen table. Mr. Lindsay, based on the market data we have in front of us, and never do this. I shouldn't say never, run your business how you choose. Best practice is, Mr. Lindsay, before we get started, where do you and Janina feel that you sit in the market? Always ask the client where you think they sit, right? Sometimes you'll actually sit down with market data and they'll be like, that's great. When do we get started? Oh, new roof? Yeah, we'll do the new roof. Sure, we'll dig up the front yard and replace the septic. They say yes to all the things. You might have an occasional unicorn like that, rarely. So sometimes you'll make an offer, it gets accepted, and you move the process to closing. Or it gets rejected and you negotiate. And the negotiation is going to be over what? If you choose the price, you don't get to choose the terms. If you choose the terms, you don't normally get to choose the price. What does everybody want to know when you hand an offer? And we talked about this on Monday. When are we closing and for how much? Because they ultimately probably know from your pre-approval and earlier conversations that you're going to be cash or whatever the case may be. Then you get accepted or rejected and you go through it again, or you get to close. And negotiation, again, even with another broker, and we talked about this, there's so many different levels of scripts and conversations you're going to get good at. As you're getting started, I would argue that most of you, you're pretty comfortable at your desk making calls. I mean, you don't love making the calls, but you're comfortable in that environment because you can sit with all the scripts out in front of you. They can't see you checking the scripts. They can't see you looking at your notes. And you get to a point where they say, yeah, sure, come to a kitchen table. Can't wait to talk. Then you get to the kitchen table. You can't possibly sit there with the scripts and be like, hi, Mr. Underwood. That's a lovely shirt. Like, you know what I mean? You can't be reading, but can you have a whole bunch of stuff in front of you that you can pull from? Sure. But at that point, we need to be, and again, we don't need to really be ultra concerned about what we're going to be saying. Most of our scripts, 99% of our scripts are what? What are they? Conversational. It's a Q word though. Q. Questions. We're just asking questions, right? Where do you feel you sit in the market? Why are we moving? When do we need to move, right? The 6 connecting questions. What, where, when, why, who, how, right? And if we're asking all those questions and we're uncovering their motivation or lack thereof, we're finding out more, then we're going to understand why they're pushing back on price. Because they're going to see market, if their time is important, and it's usually both, but if they need to move yesterday to get out to their aunt in Washington State, because she's stage 4 and they want to go out and comfort her in the end, they're going to be malleable on the price, but the time has to happen. Our job is to get them both, obviously. Who you negotiate with, your buyer. You're going to negotiate with your clients to get started. Because initially, when you're negotiating to get in the door and have an appointment, right? Anybody worked with, if you went to Glover yesterday, or if you've ever seen Jeff Glover speak, he cut his teeth on FSBOs. That was how he made his break into the business, really. You're negotiating with them. FSBOs and expireds both did what? They've already been in the market, right? And we know, and never use this word with them. I shouldn't say never use it with them, do whatever you want. I wouldn't recommend using this word, but we have to remember they have a problem and we have to help them verbalize that or self-realize that without saying it to them. Everybody loves working with, or people know that it's maybe a little easier to work with a FSBO or an expired because they've already raised their hand. You know, my belief system is that a FSBO, an expired's out of the business, or I should say out of the market, and they're annoyed with their seller, their listing agent, right? So if I'm an expired, I had a bad experience, or whether I know it or not. I just went through a bad experience with one agent. To me, a FSBO, always a guy, by the way. Because men are stupid. Women are smart, they hire a professional. Are you a FSBO lady? So she's working through the spirit of her husband. Yes. Yeah. The spirit of stupidity is alive and well. All right. 99% of the time, my belief system is most FSBOs are men. This is the same guy that, like I always joke, we're going to the garage, grab the drill and drill his own molar, right? Like, I got a sore tooth, I'll fix it because I'm wicked smart. Yeah. FSBOs for dummies. I just got it at Barnes and Noble. So the FSBO is now annoyed with the entire industry because the FSBOs had enough experience. They're stepping away from the industry. They're going to do it with themselves. Both your expireds and your FSBOs, most buyers and sellers want to do things in a timely fashion. They're looking for the same 2 streams of revenue that we were when we joined real estate. I want more time and more money. I want to sell it, you know, and sometimes time is important for different reasons. You need it to be longer because you have a suitable housing clause, but for the most part, can I get this sold efficiently? And can I net more than ever before? Can you help me do those 2 things? So we are talking to buyers, maybe the buyer's agent if we're on the list side, seller's agent. We're communicating with our clients, always negotiating with them. And this is wildly important too. Never forget this. This is from the desk of Nate Dickey. Even if you've worked with John Q. Citizen, phenomenal agent. I'm rolling my eyes. John Q. Citizen in beautiful downtown Dover. You've had 7 deals with him and 9 of them have been horrible. You're picking up what I'm putting down, right? And you are about to go work with them again because he has the listing that your buyers want. At no point in time is it ever a good idea to tell your buyers that he's a jackalope. Because at some point, you're going to have to go back to your buyers and say, hey, listen, Jack's really working hard on the other side. And how could you possibly say that in integrity if you started the relationship with your buyers and Jack and you told them that he's an idiot? Or you've never had a good experience with him? Like, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt every time. And we have to know at some point, we're going to have to go back to our clients and tell them the other agent is really working hard to get this done. It's fascinating that people do that, right? Nate will always say in any conversation inside of a deal, we can bring kerosene or water to the fire. And we have to always cool down the conversation, not heat it up. And don't forget, ironic that the thing just kicked in. When we walk into a room, we set the temperature, right? We can be a thermostat or a thermometer. We don't adjust to the temperature of the conversation. We set the temperature of the conversation. So if somebody's super heated, we have to come in and cool it off. If somebody has really low energy, but we want to get things moving, we need to bring the energy, positive energy, not negative energy. I share this story a bunch, and I can't believe I'm forgetting her name. I wish I could remember because she's a sweetheart. She's at Remax. I'm working with investors. I'm super annoyed because I'm trying to set up like 15 showings for them in one day because they had a massive budget and they wanted to do something yesterday. And I called this agent, absolute queen, and I'm trying to get into one of her houses. It was on Silver Street in Dover, one of her big rentals or big houses that obviously cash flow house. And she couldn't make it work. And I'm like, all right, awesome. Hey, thanks. Talk to you later. And I hung up. Like, I was super rude. She calls me right back. That massive veteran move. And I'll never forget, like this happened, like, don't forget, I stopped selling in 2014. This is probably 2012. So here we are, what, 11 years later, I'm telling the story, right? So pretty powerful. She calls back. She's like, Tim, I'm like, yeah. She goes, is everything okay? She goes, well, you just left the conversation abruptly. I hope I didn't offend you. And I was like, oh, like God's just choke slapping me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm just up against it right now. And I'm dealing with some pretty contentious investors. And she goes, I understand how it goes. She goes, I've worked, like she's talking to me like, dear stupid, I've been here longer than you. She's like, I've worked with investors before too. Like I discovered fire. Oh, you're working with some trying clients? Tell me less, Tim. So she calls me back 2 hours later, got me the time slot. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. No, that's not her name. Shit. Can somebody look up? I'm losing my mind. Is it Beverly Brooks? Does that sound right? Look up Beverly Brooks Remax. I think I'm losing my mind. Just look up Beverly Brooks. I swear to God, that's who it was. I'll never forget. Although I just did forget. Never forget the moment. Yeah, I also had people walking into the room that thought it was a completely different room. So I don't know what's going on today. I have no idea what's going on today. Yeah. Did you find her? Brooks. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who it is. If I remember correctly. Yes?
It says it, yeah.
Yes. Absolute sweetheart. That would be. God bless her. That is, yeah, that's 11 years ago when I didn't have gray hair either. Yes, that is her. She's absolute sweetheart. One of our best days ever will be if she decides to join us before she finishes things up. Yes. Absolute sweetheart. Common points of negotiation. What do we always say? If you're choosing the price, you can't choose the terms. If you're choosing the terms, you can't choose the price. It's rare that you're going to get, but this is where concessions get made. Maybe you meet in the middle on finances and you meet in the middle on the terms or conditions. Usually the primary factor is price. The cost of the property. Financial concessions being made back and forth too, right? If the sellers are paying a portion of the closing cost or whatever the case may be. We saw none of that during COVID, by the way. Like I said, for you guys coming in right now, and not that we weren't teaching this during COVID, but you had a lot of kids join the industry during COVID that never practiced appraisals, inspections, negotiations. If you think about it like a convenience store, it was Cumbies. You were standing behind the counter and somebody's coming up with an energy drink and some Suzy Q's. And you're like, get out. But now we have to come out from behind the counter. We have to do a needs analysis. What kind of Suzy Q's do you want? What kind of energy drink do you want? Why is it important to you? We went from drive-by shooting real estate and we're back in it. And you're going to be dealing with a lot of people that haven't actually practiced real estate. This is not a job, it is a practice. We are not lawyers, but we deal with an inordinate amount of paperwork that is in place to defend the client, to protect the client. And there's a lot of companies. We're in Massachusetts right now, right? And I'm gonna have you guys out of here for New Hampshire. Oh, Siri, no, we're not. She's like looking up Massachusetts law. I don't know what's happening. They're definitely listening.
Tell them to come in and start it up.
Yeah. Wait a minute, are we doing court today? I didn't say parole officer at the top. Can you imagine? Biden must be in Washington, like, what is he doing in that room? So, and then terms, either financial, time-based, or both. And the terms are going to be the conditions, things that we're negotiating, things that are coming up during inspection or whatever the case may be. But normally, the party that is going to stick to their price is going to be malleable on the terms. If they're going to be malleable on the price, they're going to hold to their terms. And this is why we make that call when we're making the offer and putting it together with our buyers. And we're calling the listing agent and saying, what does a great offer look like to your sellers? Or what we came up with the other day, which I like even more, what does a great closing look like for your sellers? Because it infers your greatness. We're going to get to the closing table. What does a great closing look like for your sellers? So the 3 Ps: prepare, present, and position. And we're doing this obviously with our clients first, and then above and beyond that with the co-broke. Preparation is the key to building confidence and ensuring a smooth negotiation process. The great John Duffy said, we work on behalf of our clients until the contract is written, and then together with our clients, we represent the contract, which is so true. There are no shades of gray. There are no nuances. The paper is white, the ink is black, it has to be crystal clear. Anybody ever watch Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Oh, yeah.
The very end, such a great scene. You stole fizzy lifting drink. It's right here, black and white. The walls have to be washed and sterilized. Good day, sir. But that's just it. Like it is crystal clear. It's not, well, Miles, you knew what I meant. I see Jenny Harper there. Hi, Jenny. Well, Jenny, when I said that, actually what my buyers meant, nope, there can be none of that. There can be, you'll run into it, and I guarantee it's going to jam up your client or their client or both. That's why it's so important that you guys don't attend contracts occasionally. You're in it constantly. And I say this with love, and I think I'm right. Anyone who's here right now that has a Massachusetts license shouldn't be here right now. Because we don't record contracts, but we're recording this class. And we do that on purpose, right? Because yes, Wednesdays are sacred. Most of our agents have New Hampshire. That's why I will be out of your way by 10:59. But if you have Massachusetts or Maine, you should be in contracts right now, which is at kellertv.com. We're currently at kellerignite.com. We have more available channels than MetroCast. Yes. Who also doesn't have functional email. We'll get to that later. Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of channels. Yes, yeah. Well, the irony is if you go to Keller Ignite or KW Fight Club, it's the same channel. Yeah, spoiler alert. But we buy them to keep you guys sane. Then we're going to move into the negotiation process by presenting the offer, but we're going to prepare it. We're going to sit with our clients and make sure before we slide this paper across the table, Mr. Lindsay, you and your wife, Janina, feel confident that this is what you're looking for. Because we could slide this over, they could say yes. So you better be into it. Because if they say yes, then we're moving forward. Now, there's going to be pathways throughout the entire contract that you can blow it up. I hate using that term, but that's what happened. So then we're presenting it. If you're on the listing side, let's assume buyer making the offer to the seller, obviously. On the listing side, I'm going to call and say, hey, we just got an offer. I'm sending it through. They want to close here. They're offering this much. They're asking for X, Y, and Z or whatever the case may be. And there's like an art to this when you're calling the listing agent, because the listing agent is going to ask, what are the key points? And we talked about this. You're going to obviously send it through via DocuSign. You're going to send through an email with the high points and the bullet points. Then I'm going to follow it up with a phone call. Hey, Miles, it's Timmy. The offer is in your email. I sent it through via DocuSign, so everybody can sign digitally. Above and beyond that, I also followed up with an email with high points, because if that's what they asked for, or if, and then on the phone, they're going to be like, so, I'm not in front of my email right now. What are we talking about? June 18th, 7:25, blah, 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 whatever the case may be, and we're seeing it again because the market is so competitive. We are seeing people, pull inspections and stuff like that, but they're back for the most part, but for sure.
The whole inspection, right, kind of start off again for a couple months, but now we're coming back to.
They went during COVID, they almost went away. I won't say they went away. And can't say this enough. And they're probably talking about this in all three contrast classes today. We never bold, italicized, 48-point font. We never recommend to our clients to not do anything, right? We make them aware, like going back to the paperwork. If I'm going to put somebody in my car, and I'm using my spirit fingers, if I'm going to throw somebody in my car, I need their pre-approval approval of funds. They're signing the New Hampshire broker's disclosure or Form 3. They're signing their buyer's agency agreement. And I also need the KW general disclosure. That KW general disclosure, hazmat, Megan's Law, all that stuff. We don't do that for them. That informs them of their rights. And we also make sure that they understand home inspection, right? The power of the home inspection is to make sure that we're going to find any, latent defects, any issues. We're not talking about they don't like the wallpaper, pull the wallpaper down. Like we can, I can tell you you're bad in bed after we're married, right? Let's buy the house first, right? Let's not complain about the wallpaper before we get married, right? So in the grand scheme of things, we got to be super smart about the fact that these are going to give us the opportunity to see some of the blind spots and get things fixed. Also really important for our FHAs, our VAs, our rurals, government-backed loans that have to have certain things accomplished before the property can transfer. So we're not telling them we never advise them to not do something, but we can also conduct the inspections and then advise them about what would be wise to ask for. Like you get through some houses, I'll never forget, we had clients and they're just like, God, I feel like all of the light switch covers are different colors. I will buy you the friggin' light switch covers, right? We can replace those later, right? Like we talked about with conditions and price. The old couple doesn't want to take down the swing set. Miles, buy the house. I will come over with a 6-pack of Natty Light and a ratchet set. I'm not going to do it. I'll watch you, but I'll bring my tools you can borrow, right? We can do that later. Let's own the swing set. If you want to take it down, let's take it down after we own it. Not tell the 80-year-old couple that's just trying to go to South Carolina and play golf. They have to take it down because somebody else will be smart enough to not ask for that. But what we've historically seen is couples and families and decision makers will say, I am going to offer $850 and make the old people drain the pool and make the old people take down the swing set. But if I had a conversation with Miles and said, hey, what does a great closing look like for your sellers? If they could leave the swing set behind, that'd be awesome. Because historically, what we tend to hear is they will talk about things that are important to them. Money comes up, but if it's the 5th bullet point, then I know the swing set staying in place is more important than $849. And I can offer $824 and keep the swing set. And if you got kids, keep the swing set. If you don't, donate it to the school system or whatever the case may be. But some of the stuff that we trip over ourselves in spite of the sale, which is fascinating that we will do that. And it's not our job to do that. We are shopping with our eyes and our knowledge and our know-how and their wallet and their hopes and their dreams. So we are in an advisory position to make sure they understand what they can do. And you could ask for that, Mr. Lindsay. Feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Had a lot of clients that felt the same way. What we found is when you ask a 90-year-old man to take down a swing set, he's going to walk away. Yeah. You're bringing kerosene to the fire, not water. Somebody, go ahead.
In this-
Can you yell into that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In this current environment, you know, this obviously is starting to go away with the no inspections and so forth. But I saw, you know, in my private dealings before.
Sure.
In conversations about wanting to have an inspection, but no contingencies on the inspection. They just wanted that for peace of mind.
Yep.
So what's your negotiating strategy if, say, you do come to a client in a situation and a deal where everybody agrees to that, but then you uncover an underground tank or some BS? Are you in a position of power just based on the fact that pulling out of the deal is going to cause headaches for both sides? Or are you like, this is a above and beyond issue that we've now found, you know, outside of chip paint, or, you know, this needs to be fixed, or? you know?
Yeah, Jason, again, because in the interest of edifying our smart people and me staying in my lane, I'm gonna ask you at 11 o'clock or at some point, to get JV and Westcott to tell you how they want that worded. And we talked about the clause library. I'm going to tell you right now, I can say this beyond a shadow of a doubt. We would never advise in a general residential transaction to list that you're doing the inspections for informational purposes only. Because the probability that you are going to skate free of any issues that you wouldn't want to take care of on behalf of your client is crazy town. We talked about earlier this month when you've got somebody going into REO, right? Or a bank owned, and it says $110,000, right? And young couples love this. We're going to get a $110,000 house. I would always advise, from a sanity standpoint, well, yeah, Jim and Linda, this is awesome, super exciting. Let's do the home inspection before we make an offer. I would always say that, because we're going to go in and figure out what the problems are so we can amend our offer, right? Because the bank ultimately, they're stacked this high in Washington. Some of these bank owns, right? They've got a stack of them. They do want to sell them, but for me to make an offer and then conduct an inspection when it says clearly in the liner notes sold as is, I got to go and do the inspection first. And people don't always do this, but I would say to my buyers who think they're getting into a great deal because they watch too much HGTV, and we're going to do the inspection first so we can see what the issues are. The bank is not going to make any adjustments. They're not going to improve any conditions, but we can then come back and say, this is why we're offering 89,000, not 110, right? But in a traditional residential transaction, I would never want to put the words that we are doing this for informational purposes only. Because now you've handcuffed yourself, and it just doesn't make any sense. You're doing inspections. You know, they can say, well, yeah, listen, you know, we're priced, because we talked about this too. When I'm standing in the front yard with my buyer next to the listing agent, Jenny Harper, and my buyer and I are like, Jenny, the roof needs to be mowed. And she's like, yep, appreciate that. Troy and his family understand that, and they didn't want to attack the roof. So we got some local quotes and we adjusted our pricing accordingly. She just politely told me, don't come back after the inspection with money for the roof, because we factored that into our pricing. That doesn't mean you got a $40,000 quote and you dropped your price 40 grand. She just verbalized to me that we adjusted our pricing accordingly. Whether I believe that or not doesn't matter. She politely told me, don't come back with a $40,000 tab to me. And she actually got me a local quote from a great trusted, you know, maybe she has 3, but we would always offer, yeah, this is the quote we used. Because you could look and be like, you're telling me you took 40 grand off your initial price? No, I didn't say that. That's not what I said. I said we adjusted our pricing accordingly. I don't think, and I think JB and Westcott would agree, never say we're only conducting the inspections for informational purposes only, because you're handcuffing your buyer at that point.
I was just asking because I did a private transaction,
Yep.
over the pandemic, and it was in the Wild West, time period.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
I was selling it privately to another couple, and, that was part of, the deal of sale, is if they wanted to do an inspection, they could, but it
Yep.
was for informational purposes only. At that time period, I know it worked out,
Yep.
okay in my favor, and everybody ended up happy, but I also had an intimate knowledge of the property, so.
Well, and people might have been using that language or that feeling a lot more during COVID, because there was no intention that they were going to jam up. You were going to lose if you were freaking out about appraisals and inspections. It was Wild West. Like, we were doing deals on cocktail napkins. We weren't, but you know what I mean. So I appreciate that then. Best practice moving forward, you never want to use that language. It's going to jam you up. But again, that's why we have all the clauses we have, and that's why Jason and JV would always want you to go to them or to your team lead, you know, and make sure you're using the language that your team wants you to use or your broker wants you to use. So we want to know our goal. What are we trying to get to? Know our client. Where are they at? This is why we're sitting with them when we're preparing it. Again, John Duffy, great quote. We work to represent our clients until the contract is written, and together with our clients, we represent the contract. Want to think ahead. We want to use our historical knowledge of what we've seen in other deals and why this might be a problem. You know, the benefit of them working with you is you do this on a regular basis. Set clear expectations. If we ask for this, this could be a non-starter. If we don't ask for this, if we tell them we're conducting inspections for informational purposes only, we can't skate back. You can, but it's going to become a non-starter again. Be informed, obey the laws, know the documents inside and out. That's why Wednesdays are sacred. That's why you should be in contracts class always. I'm like, oh, I went for the first few weeks, but when was the last time I was in contracts class? I think we're over on Islington Street. Yeah, that was, you know, we moved October 13, by the way. So when you hear us refer to Islington Street, it was over 10 years ago. Yes. Yeah. And not just Wednesdays. Don't forget you have access to JV and Westcott Mondays at 1 o'clock, Fridays at 1 o'clock, every other Tuesday at 10 o'clock. We do Main Essential Forms. You have 6 hours every week with your brokers, not to mention your access to them via text and call. Asking the right questions provides you with the points you'll negotiate on. Provides insight on where you and your client will have leverage. With the getting back to home inspections, when you get the report back from the home inspector and you're only asking for super essential things, and again, talk to your team lead if you're on a team, or if you have questions about this, certainly check in with our brokers. What we found to be really powerful, if there were only a few essential things we were asking for, we normally would find out what the cost of that was going to be. We would ask for the funds, not for the fix. I don't want the seller controlling the fix. I want my buyer to be in control of that, unless it needs to be taken care of before the transfer of the property. I understand that. But we're going to ask for the financial concession on the contract rather than have the seller fix it, because we want to be in control of the fix. And if I'm only asking for 3 very essential things, and I have a home inspection report that is the size of the Old Testament, with the permission from my buyers, we would send over a bunch of information. So, hey, Steve, we're only asking for these 3 things. Why don't you read through what we found? There's other stuff we could have asked for, but these things are most important. Other things are not pressing. We can deal with those later. My buyers are not that freaked out about that, because that can really expose the fact that you are only asking for what's absolutely necessary. Not everybody wants to do that, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I want full transparency. If I'm asking for 10,000 to amend 3 different things, and if they've scrolled through the entire inspection report and said, God, there was like $25,000 worth of things in here, but they only asked for these 3 things that are $9 grand, that's helpful. In the same way in which if I'm calling Miles and saying, hey, Miles, Tim Lindsay with KW, I've got the Lindsays, they want to see 123 Main Street on Saturday. Can we do 12:30? Awesome. Hey, I also noticed in the MLS that you have buyer's agency listed at 2.5%. Are you able to support my 3? Or even using the language, I have my buyers under agreement for 3%. Are you able to support that? I'm going to offer as much information as I'm willing to, and I would always do that on the buyer side. You can change your language. We can't say, are you splitting? That's tortious interference. That's the same reason I would send over, with my buyer's permission, I would send over the entire inspection report. If it was a really bad horror show of a read and we were only asking for 3 things, you look like a hero. Because then the listing agent can take it to the seller. Be like, Ted, Sally, they're asking for these 3 things. It's 9,000 in concessions. This right here If Tim and his clients ask for this, that's 14K. I do this all the time. That's a win, right? And that's how we win-win, right? And that's how we get on the same page. And he's not doing that if we're burning each other in effigy. And I can't convince my buyers that this is gonna work, because I've worked with Ted in the past, and I keep close to my vest that I hate Ted, right? This is why we never do that. Like, oh, this is gonna be terrible. Ted's a terrible agent. That's not gonna help anything. Set clear expectations. It allows us to get to know our client and their goal. And it helps you learn what will make it a win-win negotiation for both parties. So again, check with your team lead. And it's not always the case. You can't do it unless, because your buyers own that inspection report. Without their permission, you can't forward it all over. But we found it to be powerful in certain circumstances. When they could see there was about $30,000 worth of issues and you're only asking for 9K. And again, ask for the finances, don't ask for the fix. We find it's most powerful to let your buyers control the fix, unless, of course, it needs to be attacked before transfer of property. Open questions versus closed questions. What's an open question versus a closed question? A closed question is, do you want lunch? Yes or no? Open question is, what do you want for lunch? Questions that have unlimited response options. What additional information should I know? What's important about closing in 30 days? How do you feel about that? Closed ones don't really peel the onion. It'll get you there, but you'll find more stops in the conversation. The best questions are shorter than what the perceived answer will be. Right? And I'm Talkosaurus Rex. I find more often than not, especially like this month when I'm doing the mega agent interviews on Quick Start for Mega Agent May. I'll start a question and like 30 minutes later, I finish asking it and the person's like, what was the question? I'm like, yeah, I forgot to actually, yeah. Right? Our best questions are historically shorter than what the perceived answer will be. So a closed question, do you have to sell your home to buy a specific date? Open question is, when do you need to sell by? And then answer, what's important about that date? Do you have any other offers? What is the bottom line price you would consider? And it's not we don't use those, but if we want to continue the conversation, open questions are always much, much better. I mean, horrible closed question. Mr. Underwood, do you want to meet? No. Mr. Underwood, I'm excited to get started. Do you want to meet Thursday at 3 or Friday at 4? Right? Yeah, it's open and I gave you two choices, right?
Do you come across like the bottom line price question? You know, I think about, I've sold a lot of these cars. So
Yep.
of my own. In the, hello.
Hi,
Yeah.
hi, how are you? Everybody say hi. Oh, I thought you meant moving to Mass. I was like, oh, Little Italy, little northern Italy. Anyway. Yep. At 11 o'clock it'll be on. Yeah, New Hampshire's gonna be on 11 o'clock. Yep. Maine's at 10, New Hampshire's 11. I apologize in advance. Yeah. It's a terrible acronym, by the way. I'm not politically correct, but keep going. Finish your thought, Jeff. Finish your thought. We are in negotiation. Yep. We do. Jenny Harper's in the room. We got Sindel in the room. Yep. Sorry. They can't hear you anyway. The other microphone's over there.
So hang on. In contracts, I've been here at
As soon as we get done with this, which is coming to a theater near you, by about 10:30, we'll be in the main. Yep. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. See you, bud. I'm supremely convinced most of my teammates don't know what I do. But just like, are you free? I'm like, no, dude, I'm teaching. You can sit right there. Yeah, we're doing Ignite right now. Welcome, by the way. Welcome. Yes. Awesome. I don't hear the Southern accent at all, by the way. Yeah. Beautiful downtown North Kakalaka. Welcome, welcome. You were mid-question with Jeffrey, so really interrupted.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
just on
yeah.
the
How dare
bottom line price, is that ever a question that would come across? I feel, ultimately that creates, on a listing agent or a seller's perspective, never a conversation or piece I want to offer up. Just selling other items, used cars, which I hate when people come and say,
Yeah, yeah,
what's your bottom dollar? Well,
Yep.
that's not what I'm, putting the price out at. I'm
Yeah.
happy to negotiate.
yeah,
But,
sure.
where's the, I would avoid that question kind of altogether unless it was directly related to, what does a good closing look like?
Yeah,
and
sure.
factoring that into the price point and putting other contingencies in there to allow that closing to go, leaving the swing set and all that,
Mhm.
and then coming forward with that. That feels like a very stop transaction question to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, to your point, when we call and say, what does a great closing look like for your sellers? And the first 4 or 5 bullet points are other issues, then the money comes up. We already know. If you're sitting, from a agent to client, negotiation, when I'm first talking, like they know, or when you first sit at the kitchen table. So before we get started and talk about where the market is, Mr. Lindsay, where do you and Janina feel you sit in the market? And they'll be like, well, we were thinking right around, awesome. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna want to know from my seller, yeah, what do where, that's probably the one piece of information that you would take the last arrow through your eye before you would share with anybody is, what do you want to net? Right, but we're never going to share that because that's wildly important usually, because then when we start to negotiate with our sellers as we're signing them, invariably we get in a conversation about, and I think everybody's doing this right now in America, your commission's going to come up, your marketing dollars are going to come up, your 6 apples or whatever the number is. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's never about your commission, it's always about their net. So if we have agents that are really good at the net sheet, the number is important, because when I can bake in my 6 apples and still show them that they're netting what they want, which we know that goes back to the FSBO conversation. When we're sitting with the FSBO, we know historical average in the last 10 to 15 years is when you work with a professional agent, you net 13% more. So Mr. Lindsay, extract out my team's 6 marketing apples that we command. I love that word, right? That's what we command. You're still netting 7% more. Then if you have the historical data of your list to close, when you have a list to sell ratio as well, my list to sell price is historically 4 or 5% above the market average. Because that's where people get caught up in their feels too. They're like, well, they sold here, but look where they started. Yeah, Timmy got them sold at 450. They started at 775 back in 1938. Yeah, they've been chasing the market for 3 presidencies, right? So that's all wildly important. So at some point with your seller, are you asking that? I never found myself asking that when I was calling. Your first name again? Julie. Okay. If I'm calling Julie, my first question isn't, what's your bottom line on price? I'm finding out, what is a great, I like that so much better than what we used to use. What does a great offer look like? What does a great closing look like for your sellers? And let her take me through, if they can leave the tractor, if they don't have to take down the swing set. And then the third bullet point is money. Well, the money's important too. And even if she starts to pretend that she's hard and fast, or her clients are hard and fast on the money, she talked about the other things first. And now I know if I'm malleable on those first 2 things, that I'll have some wiggle room here. Because it's the price or the terms. And she told me her clients feel these 3 terms are more important than the price. Not astronomically more important than the price, but she talked about those first. And just the order in which she gave me those bullet points, I know that there's some room on the price. I do want to know, and I think a lot of clients, a lot of agents will have that conversation. You know, where do you need to fall?
Yeah.
Where does the money need to be?
Fine.
Yep, yep, yep.
Salesperson to salesperson, everything.
No, yeah, because I don't want to. That's where Chris Voss, great book, by the way, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. He's a former FBI negotiator. And Never Split the Difference, great book. Have you ever seen his TED Talk? Awesome. That, like, why would I open the conversation and start to paint myself into a corner? I'm not going to call Julie and make it about the price, because now I made the conversation about the price. I asked her a question she may have never heard before. What does a great closing look like for your sellers? Well, if it's sunny and Bob likes old fashions, he'll probably get one at lunch after we close. Like, she's going to start talking about 15 other things after closing at a phenomenal price, which I still haven't brought up, right? But if I like, what's your bottom line price? No, she's focused on that. I just pointed to the elephant in the corner when it could have been about all these other things. So Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss, is all about don't negotiate yourself out of your greatness. Like when you're going to buy something, right? And somebody puts up something on Facebook Marketplace, such a great place, right? Hey, is that still available? They go away again, right? Yeah, something on Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, and I'm not gonna. Hey Miles, I see the Rosinell skis you put on Facebook Marketplace. What are you selling them for? What do you want to give me? No, what are you selling them for? Right? Because we haven't mentioned anything yet. So yeah,
Chris, Voss, VOSS.
VOSS, Chris Voss. Never Split the Difference. Phenomenal book. He absolutely did a TED Talk. I think if you punch him up, you'll probably find him on a lot of different. I know Ed Milet, who was just a family reunion, interviewed him at some point. Ed Milet was California this past February. Yeah. Yep. Family reunion. In this February, this coming year, it's going to be in Vegas. The rumor is it might be Vegas back to back because we owe Vegas from COVID. Anybody. It's not free, but anybody. Yes. Yeah. Conference. No, I know at Mega Camp they're bringing Timmy Tebow in, but I don't know about family yet. But the keynote speaker at Mega Camp in August is Tim Tebow. What and why questions? What would happen if helps you anticipate the steps of the negotiation? So this is simply to your buyer. What would happen if they came back and said no? Right? And because you can start to prepare them for what you know, hey, based on offers like this in the past, there's a high probability they're going to come back and maybe ask for this or that. How do you feel about that? What do you want to do if that's the case? Why is this important to you? Helps you gain more information and gain more insights, right? What would happen if they said no? I talked to you guys about my clients out in Ringe. They got all worked up, but I prepare them. And I used to have this conversation about radon all the time, because radon is for picocuries or whatever the friggin' word is, that the air has to be, if the air is below 4, we're good. And I said, so, and I used to always just sort of joke. I'm like, so what if it comes back at 3.9? We're going to like burn the house down. What are we doing? You know, and they're like, oh no, I'll be fine with, like, I've had people say to me, oh, if it's under 4, right? We're good if it's under 4, right? And it came back, one time it came back at like 3.87. I was like, yes, you know? And then you'll still have some families that are like, we want to do it, but we're not going to ask for it, because they could, but you're not really within the realm of saying we need this done because it's below what the federal number is. But I had the Pelicanis in Ringe, and that was the guy that we asked to get it paid for, and they said no, because the sellers had met us way on price. And the guy said to me, like, listen, dude, I know you're doing inspections. I know you're going to come back with stuff, but like, there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room because they needed to move. And they said, no, will you split the rate on with us? They said no. And that's when I knew Tony was going to be like, and I did that whole thing where I said to him, like, hey, listen, because April was still on the West Coast. And he's like, yeah, we're not doing it, Tim. And I went right with him. My wife's driving the car, freaking out because I'm blowing the deal up, but it was planned. Yeah, it was manic, but it was planned. And I'm like, Yeah, Tony, completely agree. Hey, on this next search for the next house, why don't we make sure April comes with us? And he's like, whoa, what? Because like I was running with them, right? I was pouring gas on the fire, running with them. And he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'm like, well, I thought we were moving on. No, let me talk to April. And I would always have math, and not to be disingenuous, but I would always know the math, find something they loved and break it down. Like I know you and April and Braden love to do pizza night. If you could do one less pizza night a month for half of the mortgage, you realize that's going to pay for the radon, and have that ready and sort of make it sound like you're spitballing, but if they ran the math, you were right. And just minimalize the impact, not to mention, they're probably not going to be in there for the 30-year mortgage anyway, but have that kind of math ready or be ready to run with them. And I did that with the Policanis and he was like, oh, no, let me call April. He calls you back. You were right. We want the house. I'm like, dude, it's $1,200. Breathe, right? Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, but people will blow it up over that. And I say this all the time. I joke with you guys about my friend Chad. I always say, I said it to Chad first, and I would say it to my clients all the time. Mr. Underwood, friendly reminder, at some point during the transaction, I'm going to let you know that we've arrived at that place. What do you mean by that, Tim? We're going to negotiate back and forth. Historically, most deals, there's negotiations. We're going to get to a point where we've got a relative fair game on win-win. And what I've found historically is somebody's looking for the win. And we're going to ask for something that might be out of bounds. And I would just, that I would start to say to people, remember I said we're going to get to a place, and I would, permission to warn you that we've arrived. We're there right now. Well, what do you mean? Well, we're fighting over this. And this is like $289 a week. Tim, could you go without your $38 cold brew from Dunkin' Donuts once a week in order to get the kids into the school system you wanted? Of course I could. Awesome. Yeah. What? It's too far. Yeah. Look, he's holding his cold brew like it's his next ex-wife. Whoa. We got to keep asking questions. If we stay curious and we take the time to ask questions, let them uncover their motivation and their next logical step, because they want to be in the house. The negotiations during inspections are huge. I always say to you guys, when you come in and say, hey, put my first buyer under contract, I'll always tell you that Zoe and I will give you a little golf clap. But on the other side of that is going to be negotiations and reminding your buyers they still actually love the house. Because they will get into, I'm going to blow this up. This isn't working out for me. What's always fascinating too, and obviously this happened during COVID, multiple offers. The ego, and I'll pick on guys again because guys are idiots. The ego in some of our male consumers, when multiple offers kick in, you've seen this, right? Yeah. 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 Well, what happens sometimes? And remind me to talk about cash, which is ridiculous, but we'll talk about it in a second. You've got somebody who wants a house, super bad. The Lindsays want this house. We make an offer. And then my agent calls back. Miles calls me and says, hey, Timmy, so we got the offer in. I talked to Stacy over at 123 Main Street. They have like 14 other offers. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I'm out. I'm not going to fight with all these other people. You love the house. That's tantamount to finding out that the prom queen got 14 other offers to the prom and now you don't think she's pretty anymore. Like, are you a maniac all of a sudden? But you'll have this happen because their ego kicks in. Like, I'm not going to compete with all these other people. It's a great house. This is the fun part, that's always amazing. To your point, you'll get people all the time. My friend Chad did this on Mirror Lake, because remember he wrote the check. Dude, I'm paying cash. Like if you didn't just visually see me laying in traffic, like just run me over with the car. I'm paying cash. I appreciate that, but here's the thing, and this was different during COVID. If you're paying cash, cash is only king. This will be on the quiz later, by the way. Cash is only king if you use it to exercise what it's allowed to do. Cash is powerful when you, because what does cash allow me to do? I'm not beholden to a lender. I can now pull appraisals. I can now pull inspections. I can throw a party. I can give out pony rides. You can do whatever you want with cash. But if I'm going to make cash behave just like lending, just like financing, and have all of the other parameters still in play, guess what? You're not bringing a cotton bag full of money to the closing like the Monopoly guy. It's still going to show up in the form of a check. Cash gives you the power to exercise things a certain way. If you're not going to create the expediency that cash allows you to, it's just a check that you happen to be liquid to write. So when you get a client that starts pounding their chest like Donkey Kong and says, I'm using cash, cash is king, please use that script on them, because that is 2 buckets of stupid with a side of fries. They're still bringing a check to the table. And they decided not to exercise any of cash's greatness. So you're no different, Mr. Lindsay. Put your offer next to all the other offers and show me how you're better. But I'm cash. Awesome. Cool. Guess what? If I'm going to play the part of the seller, doesn't feel like it. Yeah. Nothing about your cash is more delicious than his lender. Yep. Any of it. It's fascinating. And this is the miseducation of HGTV. What? It's not a big deal unless you allow it to become a big deal. But a lot of people are just like, but I'm cash. Okay. Yeah, it just sounds super cool. But again, you're not showing up with like a briefcase, like a bad mafia movie. And they're like, oh, look at this. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's still a check. Yeah. Yeah. You're not using any of its power. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Best practices when presenting. I'm going to call the other agent. Don't forget, we always remind you, and I'll tell you if you're on the buyer side, and obviously as we're making offers, historically you would be. If I'm on the buyer side, when I first call for the first private showing, let's assume that the Lindsays went to an open house, right? One of the best calls you can get in your career. I'm sure you would agree. You're driving with your family and your phone rings and it's another agent in North Kakalaka. And they're like, hey, Julie, guess what? The Lindsays just popped in my open house. They wrote you down as their agent. If you have any more questions or if you want a private showing, please let me know. Right? So now the Lindsays want to go see the house by themselves after the open house. They want to see it again. And when I'm setting up that second showing, hey, Stacy, great to connect with you. They do want to see it again. I also noticed in the MLS, multiple listing service, that you have buyer's agency for 2.5%. Are you able to support 3? I'm going to ask that then. That sets the stage for the fact that now this listing agent knows, especially if you're a new and growing agent, they know that you're here and you're going to negotiate well throughout the entire deal. You're going to show up. It's very rare that you're going to affirm what your commission is going to be and then not show up for the deal, because that's the #1 answer on the board. Like if Steve Harvey was here, the #1 answer on the board, why do people not offer, great commissions on buyer's agency, is because veteran agents want to see how you're going to behave in the space. And sometimes they'll have some wiggle room and they'll offer more if they like you or they have a great historical relationship with you. That'll be the answer on the board. And they'll tell their sellers, well, we're going to hold back X for negotiations, all of which you're allowed to do. But when you call to set that first appointment to show the house, that's when you should ask the listing agent if the seller is able to support your commission, which you can't in integrity do if you don't have a signed buyer's agency agreement. Well, I've done that in the past and then I got it signed later. The power of that whole conversation where your buyer is signing off on 3% is letting them understand that this empowers me to ask for it. Now, historically in the marketplace, that won't always be the case. I'm also not allowed to support my family and ask for 3 if you don't empower me to do so. And if I'm showing them that I'm willing to negotiate for myself with them, I'm going to behave that same way out there on their behalf. I'm fighting for my family's greatness so I can go fight for your greatness, And that's why we use that conversation all the time. When you're talking to a seller and they're like, yeah, but I just met with a couple of other agents and they're willing to do it for 5 or 4.5 or 4. And what do I ask you guys to always ask? Hey, interesting, Mr. Lindsay. Did you ask them to reduce their commission or did they just do it? Oh no, they came right out at 4.5%. Huh. So that concerns me, because if they're willing to do that with you, how are they going to work on your behalf out in the wild? Right? just to get them thinking. They're not fighting for their greatness. And they did that without you even asking. That's Chris Voss. They just negotiated against themselves. They didn't even go in with a number that they could work down. They came in at a bad number. And again, to be clear, right into the microphone, not telling you how to run your business, offering best practices, right? Let's not negotiate against ourselves. And people do that all the time. So I'm going to call the other agent and I'm going to clear up, what the deal is, making sure they understand what's in the contract, give them the high points in an email. So they got the DocuSign sent through. That's in their email. They got an email from you with the high points, which most sellers want to know when and how much. And I would also highlight the things that we're willing to, we're not asking for the swing set to come down. We're not asking for you to rip apart the above ground pool, any of that kind of stuff. Pay attention to nonverbal cues like pauses and voice qualities. Right? We always talk about this. Everybody says they're better off face to face. And yes, if you're on the phone, you don't have body language, but they get to hear the words you're choosing, right? Our power is 7% is the words we choose. 43% is the tonality and passion in which we deliver those words. The other 50% is our body language. Keep quiet once you present the offer. If they get quiet, what do we always say? Whoever speaks first, right? Once you launch it out there, and this is struggle bus for me, right? Because I'm Talkosaurus Rex. The power of shutting up and letting the silence do the heavy lifting. Listen carefully to what is important to the other party. Hey, Miles, it's Tim. The Lindsays want to make an offer. What does a great closing look like for your seller? And let Miles start to talk about the important bullet points. If money's fourth, it doesn't mean it's not important, but it's not obviously more pertinent than those first three things he said. And we can use those terms to leverage what we're asking for in a price. Stay calm and relaxed. Beverly Brooks, right? We bring water, not kerosene to the fire. And this isn't about us. I've said to you guys so many times, I want you guys doing the maximum amount of lead generation so you can always be excited for the opportunity and not attached to the outcome. You will be in a deal. You will eventually be in a deal. I'm sure Julie has been in a deal. I'm sure Jenny Harper up there has been in a deal where if the other agent doesn't keep this deal together, their electricity is getting shut off. Right? And now they are attached to the outcome. The win for the client is no longer paramount. That should be a concern. I never want you guys in that position. We have to focus on the customer's needs. This is a win for them. When they get their win, we get our win. Ever see the movie Outside Providence? Great movie, by the way. When the father's talking to the son about going out with his girlfriend. It's a whole conversation about at the end of dinner at Chinese restaurants, you're both supposed to get your cookies. I'm not going to take it any further than that, even though we're all adults, but you'll see the movie. Great movie, by the way. Alec Baldwin, Outside Providence. Right? We get the win when they get the win. Everybody gets their cookies. Give your offer the best chance. Make sure it's super clear. I'm going to quote John Duffy again, right? We represent our clients until the contract is written. Then together with our clients, we represent the contract. It has to be hyper clear. White paper, dark ink, no grays, no nuances. I'm not sending it across to Julie and like, oh, she'll know what I meant. We're friends. She understands my colloquialisms. Nope. We're using clear terms. And then we're going to back that up by sending through an email with the high points and then calling behind that. You have the offer that you guys can execute in DocuSign. I sent an email with this stuff. I'll review it with you right now. Because more often than not, you're going to call another agent. What do we always say? You're going to do 80% of your business with 20% of the agents. More often than not, when you're calling a listing agent, where are they? In line at Starbucks or in their car. Oh, just sitting on the couch talking to my cat. Never the case, right? Successful agents are always on the move. I appreciate, Stacy, you're not in front of your email. Let me read it back to you. We're offering X. We're asking to close here. And now that also wildly important. How do I know when we're closing? Because I asked Julie, what does a great closing look like to her sellers? Well, they really need to wait until the end of June. I'm going to tell my buyers to figure it out, right? Because we have a lot of that right now. Suitable housing clauses. And above and beyond that, I also have to talk to who? Bradley Kelly at Movement Mortgage. When can my lender close? I can't go to Brad and be like, no, they need to do it yesterday. He's like, well, no, we need a little more time than that, right? Your lender is going to help you help guide you on when you can actually close. Acknowledge and affirm common ground. If you have to point out to your client, to the other agent, where some of the wins are, don't forget to keep asking what and how questions. What's important about that for your client? How can we make this work? Another positioning is a process. Again, I'm going to remind everybody where we're seeing eye to eye, and maybe if there's some things that we need to overcome. And you might hear right away when you call and say that we're coming in at 750. I don't know if that's going to cut it, Tim. Okay, but what do I know? In integrity, that agent has to present that offer. Because they might be wrapped up in the fact that they're actually at 775. I came in at 850 because I asked them, I told my client, said, don't worry about the swing set, don't worry about the pool, don't worry about the tractor in the garage, right? So I'm going to leverage the fact that we're making conditional exchanges over the price. Know when to walk away. At some point, this is not Wimbledon. You know, what your biggest deal? How many times did you go back and forth? 8? Okay. Yeah. But 8's a lot, right? Yes, 8's a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, like 8, you're like, well, all right, somebody give me some scotch. Take a little nap. Yeah, it's a lot. Yep. And I also talked to you guys about this with my friend Chad, right? We walked away for a month. And we went back to the same seller. Because that great veteran agent, Randy Parker, up at Maxfield in the Lakes region, called me, right? Hey, Tim, Chad's still looking? Yes. I'm like, your seller's still hanging out? He's like, yes. And he's like, let's get these kids back together, right? Who knows? Probably not a lot of that going on right now, right? We're definitely getting multiple offers, not multiple showings. That usually shows us where the market is. If you have a whole bunch of showings and not a lot of offers, what is it? What is it always? Price. It's always price. Well, Tim, it's a weird town. No, stupid, it's the price. Well, we got a weird driveway. No, stupid, it's the price. You can't say stupid out loud. That's an internal monologue, right? But it's always the price. It's always the price. I just talked to one of our agents. She has a condo in the same development, and 2 other condos came on after her, and she never got a call on her condo, and they're both under. I was like, cool story. What do you think the concern might be? She's like, I know. Just wanted to say it out loud. I'm like, well, okay. Do you want me to call your clients and call them stupid, or do you want to call them and call them stupid? We don't call them stupid. We got to help them understand, though. But no. We've got that mob tub. Nobody likes the mob tub, Barbara. That's not the game changer. Your price is jacked up. Like some people just walked past your condo to 2 other condos that are now under and over. Under contract, overpriced. Right? Because you priced it properly and netted up. That's the problem. It is impossible, Nathan W. Dickey, it is impossible in any market to underprice a home. Print the shirt. It is impossible in any market to underprice a home. It will net to where it's going to go. Who drives the market? Sellers or buyers? No. Who drives the market? Buyers. Right? Well, no, appraisers do. What do appraisers do? They go back to the historical data of what? What the buyers spent. Buyers drive the market. Sellers think they do. That's the ego problem. I will price it wherever I please, and these peasants will throw money at my feet. No, stupid. You're going to have this house for the rest of your life at that price. And chasing the market down, we do that when it's like, Miles, watch this. Tomorrow's Friday. Lindsay's going to drop it $5,000 again. If we wait 6 more months, it's going to be right where my buyers want it. Well, you'll watch people do that. Every Friday we lower the price because I'm an idiot. Like, what are you doing? Chasing the market. Or just put it where we know it's going to be competitive. And it's going to net up because you're going to get more people. We hear this all the time with FSBOs and expireds. I'll let you come look at the house, Julie, if you'll bring me a buyer. Interesting, Mr. Lindsay. Would it be a problem if I brought you a myriad of buyers? You only want 1? What if I brought you 10? Would that be a problem? If I brought you 10 and they all had multiple offers and an auction effect was created and you netted more, would that be a problem? No, awesome, sign here, right? But they think this one magical buyer is going to spawn like a non-playable character in a bad video game. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Most of America looks at a property and sees a house. Your buyer sees a home. And if we can't intimate that to people properly, we're going to lose. You guys have the student workbook or you don't have the student workbook in there. This is a great script to go over when you're doing script and role play. Anybody doing script and role play on a regular basis? Okay. Yeah. Script Inferno. We call it Fight Club. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we call it Fight Club. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yep. So that's a great scenario for script and role play, which we're doing tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Fight Club, kwfightclub.com. See you at 9. Oh, Declan, if I were taller, I'd kick you in the face right now, but I'm not. No, this is Ignite. Keller Ignite is for Ignite. That's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's the same one. But for people that don't know, it's kwfightclub.com. It goes to the same Zoom. You are correct, sir. Yes. Yes, you're always right, man. You're always right, Declan. I'm only agreeing with him because he's 7 feet tall. I'm 5'9". Yep. Be professional, right? Now I say that and I laugh because I've told you guys, I was always, depending on my relationship with my clients, I was always pretty flippant because I wanted to be authentic. I would tell people like that whole conversation, like, hey, Miles, we're going to get to a point. I'm going to remind you that we're being stupid. Permission to do that? You know, and that was with my friend Chad, not somebody I just met. But we do want to be professional. We have to remind them we're the adult in the room. We have to remind them we do this every day. We're not going on gut instincts. It's not my idea. It's market data. Keep the goal in mind. What's the goal? Get them into the house. On their time frame, we always say, you know, fast and cheap. On their time frame, because maybe they need to wait. Get them into the house on their time frame at the best price. And whatever else is important. What is their goal? Keep their goal in mind, which is our goal. When they win, we win. Pay attention to your communication and tone with anyone involved in the transaction. How are we showing up? And that doesn't mean that you have to be deadpan. Like, hey, everybody, okay, this isn't a sleep study. I'm not trying to send everybody up to sleep. But I want to appear reserved and professional when I need to. And also, there's points in time when you have to bring the energy. Our job is to create excitement and meet people where they are. And if their motivation is to buy a house, great language, right? Like Nate's always just like, you gonna buy the house today? You gonna buy this one? And they're like, oh my God, like, that's so forward. Well, my job as a salesperson is not to sell you something. My job as a salesperson is to help you arrive at the appropriate decision that's logical for you and your loved ones today. If you buy it, cool. If you don't buy it, cool. As long as I'm helping you arrive at the logical decision based on what your needs are. Gary says that all the time. You're never going to convince somebody or swindle somebody into buying, selling, or investing unless it's appropriate for them. That's why we need to have enough at-bats on our desk from doing enough lead generation that we can be excited for the opportunity and not attached to the outcome. If the Lindsays don't buy today, do I still eat tonight? It's not the Lindsay's fault if I'm going home to break ramen into 4 pieces, right? I'm putting a sweater on my cat because I got to shut the heat off. That's not their fault. It's my fault because 90 days ago, my face didn't do the lead generation, right? What did I say today was on the quick start this morning? It's August 15th. We're 90 days out from August 15th. Like today's activities are going to get you a closing table right before Labor Day at this point. Kalena's like, oh shit, that ain't good. That ain't good.
In the current market, I just had a quick question back on.
Yep.
Price reductions. A house came on in my neighborhood for
Yep.
$750. I know the house, I know its history.
Yep.
I knew that was overpriced, even though we're a short walk to the beach and there's a lot of, positivity in the location.
Yep.
Now it's been on the market for, I think, 3 weeks and they just dropped 50 grand. that to me, and it's a veteran agent in the local area that has the signage out front.
Yeah.
You know, in my mind, right off the bat, it was overpriced. As you're bringing a buyer into that situation now, you know, the current market is what it is coming in, you know, at a more, you know, even underpriced at that point, or just negotiation strategy around that, where everything generally now is matriculating up, where they've come in high. Are you coming in with more flexibility as a buyer's agent for that negotiation strategy at that point? Or just what's the conversation with the other agent on that?
Well, if they just made a sizable improvement, right? Because what do we always say? You've always heard me say, the best place to get your first price improvement is where? At the kitchen table with your sellers before the public finds out, right? And Gary would call that your initial marketing price. So if we sit down with the Lindsays and the Lindsays were at 650, the market said they should be at 595. We end up at 625. And I would use the language, hey, we're teammates. We're gonna go with your number to start. But please understand, Mr. Lindsay, in 10 days, and I would use when, not if, in 10 days when my phone doesn't ring, or after 10 showings, when we don't receive any offers, the market is spoken. There's one internet, Mr. Lindsay. Like in the next 24 hours, somebody in Dubai is going to decide that we're overpriced. And I'm saying that based strictly upon the historical data we have and the market data that we have in front of us right now. So our next move will be our last financial move. And a lot of people put this into their contracts. I would have the Lindsays understand that when we decide that 650 is not working, it's not going to work, right? Because the market said 595-ish. I can also show you the other houses on your street that are like properties that started where you started and closed where you closed, right? Or they're like, well, but the Lindsays closed at 650. They started at 775, right? You can show them where they started and where they landed. That's not where they started, right? And using all that information, you have a lot of savvy listing agents will write it into the contract. In 10 days, when the universe tells us that we actually suck on ice, we're going to move to this number. It's just happening, right? Massive leverage, yeah, because in a market like this, Mr. Underwood, if 650 is amazing, my phone's going to ring as soon as I push play on the internet. We're watching it happen left and right. If in 10 days in North America, where everyone has the internet except Comcast, Breezeline customers, where everyone has the internet, we're gonna find out pretty quick. And in 10 days, if the world is spoken, we need to make a move. And if we make a move to a number that you feel like we'd be failing you at, but it brings us more offers, because we're, again, only going to make this move, Mr. Lindsay, if nobody calls me, or if we get 0 offers. So would 3 or 4 offers be better than 0? I'll wait while you work the math out, right? I mean, I'm internal again. With my friend Chad, I would say it out loud, 1000%. But in the grand scheme of things, right? So when you're going into that offer, what do we always recommend that we do as a buyer's agent? You should run a CMA. So I know have market data, right? And I'm going in saying, yeah, that's where they should have started. I don't know that it should have been 595, but after running my CMA, I got to 601. Yeah. So at 625, they're still north. So if we want to shut this down, I just talked to Ted. They haven't had any other offers. They just made a massive improvement to 625. If we go in at 605, we might end up at 615. If we ended up at 615, Mr. Lindsay, would you accept that counter from the seller? Yes? Awesome. Let's do this. So I'm going to have a clear conversation with the listing agent about why they made that last move, any other offers they've had, and you know, and what comps they might have used to arrive at that initial 650 or that drew them to the 625, and then base that against the CMA that I ran for my buyers, and go to 605 knowing that it's still a massive win. You know, you can go to 605, 601, whatever. But know that this is hopefully going to start a conversation. When they come back with their retort, we need to respond accordingly, unless you don't want the house. And if you won't want the house, this is going to a lobster roll. Like, what are we doing? Right? Like, is anybody spinning their wheels right now? And that's the best part of the market right now. Nobody's out here just kicking tires. There's no time for that. You break an ankle because it's going to run over you because the tires are moving. Like, nobody's standing still right now. That's the best part of this market. If the sellers and the buyers that are on the playing field right now are dead serious, and 99% of them are, Let's just make a logical decision and make a good offer. Like the whole lowball thing. Like clear yourself of that, like just, and explain to them why it doesn't make any sense. Because you always want to juxtapose your conversation with your buyer or your seller as the other side of the table. Because your sellers are buyers unless they're moving into the woods, very exciting, right? But unless your sellers are moving into the woods, they're about to be a buyer. So, Mr. Lindsay, I understand you guys are moving out of your apartment. This is your first house. And I'd be honored to serve you when you guys decide to move into your next property. If you were listing and I did my job as I do, and we sat and went on market price at 625, and somebody made you an offer that was 50,000 below market price, how would you feel? I'd be insulted. That's what we're doing right now, Mr. Lindsay. The probability that we're going to be able to have an exchange between these two parties is slimmer because of the offer we're about to make. So do we want to move into this house or move on? And if you put them on the other side of the table, yeah, I never looked at it like that. That's why we're here. That's why we're in the conversation. We always want to add our job is to understand our buyers and sellers' perspective and add ours. Not our opinion, our perspective. The institutional knowledge we have from KW, the historical data we have from doing what we do every day, and making sure they understand that. And I completely appreciate that. The buyer's making an offer, screw them, I'm going to lowball them. All right, and in 7 years, when we're selling the house, and somebody comes in and pees in your Cheerios, how are you going to feel? Not great. Awesome, let's not do that. Why are we doing that? Like, I would protect my time and I would protect my greatness and be like, Mr. Lindsay, I'm going to do whatever you ask me to do because we're teammates right now because we have a binding contract. I'm advising you as your professional, as your fiduciary. This is not, historically, I haven't seen a lot of success come out of this. We can send this over. Spoiler alert. They are well within their rights to not respond. So are we pursuing this house or are we picking a fight? And again, based on your relationship, choose your words carefully. But I've always found like this, I will eventually not be in this building. This will get me fired. I know that. I'm fine with that. I will sleep well at night. In the grand scheme of things though, but it's also like it's a gift and the curse. When I was selling, it was one of my best tools. The words we choose. Because my job as a coach, my job as go ahead.
Oh, can I just say something real quick? So that's kind of a situation I'm in right now. Like, what would you say to this? So it's a family member through marriage. They're gonna be selling the house soon. And they've already told me that, first of all, they want obviously over asking on the house, which is just very common lately, and they know that. But then on the buying side, because he's going to buy, he's told me multiple times as he's looking, he's only gonna ask for the asking price or lower. And I've tried to explain it so politely that that's not gonna work. And I mean, he needs to find suitable housing before he even sells this house. So it's gonna be like a long process if he's under offering. Like, how would you say that? Because he just does not like want to understand. But he does. He just doesn't want to see it that way. He wants it his way or the highway.
Yeah. Well, so I understand, feel, felt, found, right, Sindel, right? So I understand, Mr. Lindsay, how you feel. We've had a lot of clients that have felt the same way. What we found, the best way to get over asking as a seller is to make sure we're priced appropriately. Because I can guarantee if we price ourselves appropriately, we will attract more offers and we will net beyond your wildest dreams. It is impossible, use this language, Sindel. It is impossible, Mr. Lindsay, in any market to underprice your home. I'm not going to set you up for failure. I'm going to set you up for greatness. We are going to attract more people to the conversation. And if you use the Ford Mercedes thing that I always talk about, I have a Ford Fusion, right? It's a horrible car, but it gets me here, right? Where did I find that Ford Fusion? On the Ford lot. I wasn't marching around with Mercedes money on the Ford lot. So if we are going to find more people, we're going to price it appropriately. Like nobody was on the Mercedes lot looking for my Ford. And when they talk about when you're talking with an expired or FSBO, usually an expired, The reason, because you'll hear this, well, Tim, Julie, wait, when I was listed, you want to come sell my house now, but when I was listed, where were you? I appreciate that, Mr. Lindsay. Here's my concern. I have a lot of buyers looking for a house like yours. I fear your car was parked on the wrong lot. Allow me to explain. And I don't want to call anybody's house a Ford. Oof. Anyway, I fear my clients looking for a car like yours, you know, were shopping on a lot that they should have found it. But based on your price, nobody was searching there. And I would also bring them into the knowledge that we have. The Lindsays were pre-approved for anywhere between 6 and 650. What do we know buyers do when they're pre-approved to 650? They shop up to 700. Because I'm going to negotiate them down. No, you're not, Jimmy. But anyway, we'll get to that later, right? In the grand scheme of things. Yeah, 1,000%. I'm going to negotiate them down. So your car was parked on the wrong lot. My buyers and myself personally, Mr. Lindsay, never found it. I want to put you in a place where you're successful. So if you'll allow me to park your car on the right lot, we'll get more people that will come and fight over your car. And by doing so, we'll net you more. If you allow me and my team to sell your house to the appropriate family that sees the value and views it as a home, and you net more, and we can do that in a time frame that makes sense for you. And I understand, Sidley, you said that he wants to find the house. Oh, brain damage. He wants to find the house he wants to buy before he lists his. Yes?
Yeah, or at least, yeah, try to find it in the process and then offer under asking price on the house he's willing to buy. But I'm like, this is going to be a never ending process. I feel like if you're going to keep.
So, yeah, you're wildly talented, kiddo. You're going to close this guy. And at closing, you have to get him I want you to buy him like a unicorn t-shirt when this happens, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, don't forget, he's got a suitable housing clause and he has also a home sale contingency. Both of those tools he can exercise. When doing so, right, he has to tell the buyers coming in, you've got to be willing to wait. And he also needs, at the same time, has to tell them, and I'm also, once we trigger all these actions, I know my dominoes have to fall. So he's going to utilize both a home sale contingency and a suitable housing clause. The challenge with that is the fact that he has to understand that he has to be moving appropriately. The fact that he doesn't want to put a sign in the yard at his house until he finds the house he's looking for, but he's going to just tell America, whoa, wait a minute, everybody. The universe is going to move on my time frame all of a sudden without actually putting legal paperwork in play is maniacal. So you got to let him know that he needs to put a sign in the ground. The buyers that are coming to play with him have to be willing to wait. And then he goes under contract, and then it starts the ticking clock on him telling the buyers, give me 45 days or whatever the case may be. The right buyer and the right seller are going to play and because he's asking for a lot of terms, right? Because so guess what he has to be willing to do? If he's setting the terms, he doesn't get to set the price. You can't have both. He doesn't get both. If he gets both, I would like to marry him because I will quit my job because apparently he's going to print money, unicorn rides for everybody. It's not going to be a thing. So if he's going to set the terms, Sindel, with the home sale contingency and the suitable housing clause, he's going to have to be malleable on price. Or he's going to lose. He's going to lose.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if you need to bring a veteran agent with you to the kitchen table to help him understand that conversation, then let's get somebody to go to the kitchen table with you and have that conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You got it.
Yeah, I have a question. So I have a possible lead for a listing at the end of the summer. It's my friend's parents. And
Sounds horrible, by the way. Yeah.
It
already sounds annoyed.
exactly. And so she reached out to them, gave my information. I reached out to her, and they want to go with Redfin in order to save as much as they can. So how can I? What should I do to negotiate this and get this deal
So
over Redfin?
Yeah, the last Redfin commercial I saw was probably on a Sunday afternoon while I was watching the Patriots not be good at football. And the fine print, which is like in a -3 font at the bottom of the screen, basically says that we will list your house for 1% if you also buy with us for 3 or something like that, right? So what are they talking about? Do the math. 1.5 and 3, 4.5%. Yep.
And then you're still also, because the buyer, right? 'Cause that's the 3% for the buyer.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, right?
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, what is attractive, Mr. Lindsay, to you about that? And again, they are focused on the commission because the disruptors in the marketplace have made it all about commission. He's not. Your friend's parents, can't say it without laughing. I guarantee, probably Ted and Marge, although that, yeah, Ted and Marge. I guarantee Ted and Marge are not worried about your commission. They're worried about their net.
Yeah, right. Every
For-
penny he-
1,000%. Yep. And I appreciate that. We've had it understand how you feel. Got a lot of clients that have felt the same way. What we've found is that when you work with an agency like mine, first and foremost, we probably all have about 3 signed buyers. Everybody in this room have a signed buyer at least? Yes? Most agents probably have a handful of signed buyers this summer. We have 700 agents at our market center. So Mr. Lindsay, the probability that about 2,100 people are going to know about your listing before I push play on the internet, because the size of my market center and the fact that we work together well and we work efficiently. If I were able to bring you a myriad of buyers and drive up the offer on your home, that ultimately negated your concern about 1.5%. Are we really talking about you saving a commission? Or are we talking about you netting more? We have to present it to them as a business owner, and the commodity in the business conversation is their house. And the net is all they're worried about. So the whole Redfin conversation, cool, awesome. They're out there. They are. I promise I wouldn't laugh when I said this. They're our competition. They're not. They're a disruptor.
Right.
And what is their one arrow in their quiver right now? They're cheap.
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
We're less expensive. If they want to race us to the bottom, I'll stay here and finish my beer. I'm not racing you to the bottom. I'm going to crush you with value. And even if we make a concession and we don't sign them for 6 and we sign them for 5, for a 0.5% more than the fiasco of paperwork at Redfin. And I'm not, and again, we're having this private conversation. And I know I'm being recorded. Hi, Gary, you look great. I know I'm being recorded. We're having this private conversation within our firm right now.
Right.
I'm never going to denigrate another firm to a client like that. But what you need to impart upon him is the plug and play of working with me and all the agents under my roof. We're probably going to find that as you start to build your businesses and your math, when you can say, appreciate that, Mr. Lindsay. Last year, I helped 48 families. 36 of those families moved locally. 24 of those families shopped under my umbrella at KWCLM. So if it's about real value, if it's about speed and success, and if you want to net more and move at your whim, we can do that. I can't speak to the greatness of Redfin. You'd have to not laugh if you say that. I can't speak to the greatness of Redfin, but I'm sure they've already told you what their value is. And you know when you say that he doesn't know what their value is. He's perceived value as their 1.5%. But the fine print is another 3%. So it's actually 4.5%. So for you to go in at 6 and command your marketing value for that, and then take them shopping for another 3 in the grand scheme of things, you can negate the 9% on the value you're going to deliver. Because yes, 4.5% and 9%, carry the 4 divided by 3. Yeah, it's 2 times. And you're 3 times better. But we don't talk about their lack of value. We talk about the value that we're going to bring. Yep. Yeah, Redfin's there. There's a lot of places that are there. Their whole marketing scheme right now is 1.5%. The fine print is you also have to buy with us. Have to. Right? So, yeah, don't overthink it. Does everybody know about the 10 conversations? Lie to me and say yes. Yes. So obviously during COVID, we want to double this. Gary would say double down. So if you're having 10 conversations, awesome. If you've never had 10 conversations you're striving to, I love that about you. Let's make our Ignite conversations go from 10 to 20 if we're powerful enough to do that. Focusing on making sure you're having at least 10 conversations. And if you fail forward and get to 6, you're doing better than most. Because we're coming up on 11 o'clock. And most agents in North America haven't talked to a soul today about their business. The kids at Redfin definitely haven't, because they're waiting for the TV commercial to do it for them. God help us. Add those people to your database. Make sure you send off those handwritten notes to the people you communicated with. Thanks for your time on the phone. Drop them a couple business cards if you need to. Infer the next phone call or the next engagement. 10, 5, and 1, we're talking about 10 hearts or likes on people's posts, 5 comments of 5 words or more. And then the 1 is either post something or share something that somebody you know and love and trust has posted that you find valuable. So 1 post and 1 share. Making sure that we're getting somewhere beyond 201 people in our command. TCPA, what's the number? Everybody knows? $43,280 per violation. It's not great. Please go to donotcall.gov so you have an account. If you have more than a couple of area codes, there is a cost to that. I would argue you can ignore this if you decide to not call unmets. Invariably, at some point during your business, you're going to call an unmet. Most of the unmets you're going to get came to you through an aggregator. They willingly put their information in. So when you call them, I was always very upfront saying, hey, Mr. Underwood, Tim Lindsay from Keller Williams, you just registered on a website of ours, you know, and it was Boomtown or whatever the case may be. I would remind them immediately. And I was calling them immediately. So I could say, you just registered. You're like, oh, I'll wait a couple of days. That gives them more room to say, I'm on the do not call list. Why are you calling? I would call them right away. $43,280. Don't do it. I engage in every conversation in the spirit of contribution, and people are happy to be in relationship with me. Michael Mayer and 7 Levels of Communication. What is the mantra in that book that I love? Today, somewhere in the city, someone is looking for help, and it's my job to find them. Today, somewhere in the city, someone's looking for help, and it's my job to find them. We are back at it next Monday. We do session 19. Next Wednesday, session 20. We are going to bring Ignite back in September. Bold is coming in August. Next month, Tuesday, June 13th, we're going to do Quantum Leap in this room. And next month, on Thursday, June 29th, we're doing Business Planning Clinic summer halftime version. Quantum Leap is like, I'm going to call it Gary's love letter to real estate. It's all about the whole agent, your whole life. Powerful class, good time. It's a full day. There'll be lunch, maybe some scotch, definitely lunch.
Thank
Questions,
you.
comments, concerns at home? Sindel, how you doing, kid?
Good. I'm gonna go to contracts now.
Awesome, yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Jenny, have a great night. See you guys. All right, I'm gonna throw